Welcome to another Flow with Tarot segment on the Magic in Motion YouTube channel. Thank you, new subscribers, for being here. Thank you to all of you subscribers that have been here since I started the channel. All right, we're growing. There's 27 of us now? Well, 28, including me, but that's 28 of us who have raised our hand and said, we want to infuse more of our spiritual technology, more of our magic into our everyday lives. And one thing I have to say is this, I may do a separate video on this, but I have decided to take out of my vocabulary the word mundane or the phrase mundane everyday activities. Why? Because there is nothing, first of all, no, the first reason is this. I am very much intentional about what I say because I know that I am the original creatrix, that my words are frequency sent out into the cosmos to create exactly what I say. So I am very intentional about what I say. And that part of me, that is a part of my spiritual technology. In that part, I'm finding myself being even more intentional about the words that I use. The second thing is this: mundane and you, mundane and me do not belong in the same sentence. There is nothing mundane about you. There is nothing mundane about your life. There is nothing mundane about any activity that you take in your life. Why? Because you're a sovereign being. You're an alchemist. You're a magician. There's nothing mundane about that. So going forward, you will never hear me say that again. Okay? You'll never hear me say that again. But this channel will always be about you infusing your spirituality into every part of your life, as magnificent as it is. You will learn how to infuse magic into the way that you make your coffee, the way that you make your food, the way that you adorn yourself, the way that you put on makeup, your jewelry, the scent that you use, your fragrance, your perfume, the way that you set up your environment. Because all of that is about embodiment and alignment. Okay? You don't do magic. You don't do rituals. You are the magic. You are the ritual. You don't do spirituality. It is you. It is an expression. It is an identity. Okay? And there's nothing mundane about that. So, with that being said, let's get started. Okay. So, for those of you that are new here, let me just explain really quick what this segment is for. This is Flow with Tarot. And so this segment is not necessarily a reading, okay? I'm just showing you my process of how I go through a card and connect with a card. And there's no expectation, when we pull a card, just we look at it. We speak about our feelings, or at least you watch me do that. I speak about how I feel about the card, whatever is coming up at the moment. Now, if you happen to take something from this segment as something that you can apply to whatever situation you're facing, whatever that may look like, then by all means take it. But just know that this is not a reading. Now, I do offer readings, okay? That is a part of a service that I provide. So go to my website, unleashedalchemy.com, and click on the link that says Tarot Readings, all right? And you can read all about my process and how I offer those readings. Okay, so I'm just gonna, all right, let's just do Page of Swords. Page of Swords. So, Page of Swords. What do I feel about the Page of Swords? So, the sword represents air. All right. And I just got through talking about the power of our words. And I've talked about this before. Okay. That's my foundation. Okay. The your words that you speak. Okay. And this is why, if you're watching this and you've heard me speak about at the top of this video, the power of the words and how you have to be intentional about what you say. Now, there could have been a part of you that said, well, what happens if you're telling a joke? What happens if you're playing? Is it really that serious to watch your words, to watch your mouth? Yes. When you realize how powerful you are, and you realize that you carry a frequency of power, you realize your words are frequency, your words are echoed in the cosmos, then yes, it is that serious. Your words can break through walls. Your words can heal. Your words can cause fires. Chaos is what I mean by that. Your words can cause peace, can bring peace. Your words can cut through tension. Your words can bring harmony. Your words can bring balance. Your words can knock balance out of whack, can knock things out of whack. So you carry a lot in your frequency, which is why paying attention to what you say is very serious. Okay. And when you understand that, you're not careless with your words. And a lot of times, and I have been guilty of this, a lot of time that carelessness that comes up in what you say, it is because of it. So in society, we have these, what I like to call these conversation staples that don't necessarily align with our power and who we are, because those conversation staples are actually limitations. And what we have been programmed to express in our relationship to others, we have been programmed to express limitation, to speak limitation, to adopt limitation, so that we can fit into a box, so that we can be viewed as, quote, realistic, so that we can be viewed as someone that we can feel comfortable around. And here's a side note. It is not your purpose to downplay who you are so that someone else can be comfortable with your frequency, so that someone else can be comfortable in your presence, in your field. Do you understand? So these conversation staples, we have to be mindful. We have to be intentional about the conversations that we engage in. We have to stop when someone is talking, and this is where when you're intentional about your words, this will also improve your communication. Because communication, I think sometimes we forget, sorry about the noise, I didn't have my mic needed to be charged. So you may get some outside noise, but when you're intentional about what you say, when you're more mindful about what you say and the conversations that you involve yourself in, you're going to find that your communication skills are going to improve. Why? Because you're going to engage in listening more. We forget often, and I'm talking about myself, that communication involves listening. That sounds so simple. But anytime someone says the word communication, we instantly think of ourselves talking. That's why so many of us interrupt. Have you been in a conversation where someone is attempting to interrupt you, or have you interrupted someone? I have. Or have you witnessed another conversation where you see just one person doing all the talking, and then when someone tries to cut in, it is just complete chaos? Yes, we have all been a part of that in some way. All those scenarios, we can all raise our hand and say that we have witnessed that in on some level. But when you're intentional about your words, it will improve your communication because now you're listening. You're listening to the other person, and you are listening to what they're saying. You're taking not, and when I say taking in, what you're not adopting what they're saying. You're hearing them out. You're looking at their body language, because body language is also part of communication. You're picking up on what they're not saying. That is also using your intuition is also a part of communication. And then even when we'll say it's your turn to speak, you don't just jump in right away, because now you've processed what they've said and you're making the determination. Number one, if you want to respond, because you don't always have to respond. Number two, how you're going to respond. Yeah. So do you want to respond? And then number two, how you're going to respond. We often think that if someone is talking, we have to jump in right away. We have to have a response right away. No, you don't. No, you don't. And this is where people find themselves getting caught up in those limited conversation staples, or just limited conversation, because they haven't gifted themselves the moment to process what the person is saying, to process whether or not they want to engage in the conversation. And if so, how? People don't give themselves the time to just pause and think about their words. We're so rushed with everything that we've rushed our conversation. And then what happens is we find ourselves in a conversation, we walk away from that conversation thinking, oh shit, I didn't want to say that. Why did I say that? That's not what the conversation that I wanted to have. Sometimes you'll find yourself walking away from a conversation, perhaps feeling exhausted. You have to think about that. Why? Why did you walk away from the conversation exhausted? Even if someone is talking in limitation, whether, regardless of the limitation, we could use any example, okay? But clearly, when it's clear that a person has limited what they want to see in their life, you can be polite. You could listen. And when it's your turn, you could say, oh, I've heard what you said, but I'm choosing something else for myself. This is what I choose for me, if you want to share it. So that was a lot with the Page of Swords. So the Page of Swords, in this case, I feel like this is reminding us to be intentional with our words, to improve our communication and how we communicate with other people by being intentional with our words, thinking about what we want to say, how we want to say it, and are the words that we're about to say, is it aligned? Is it truly aligned with what we want? Or are the words that we're about to say, is it only to be included? Is it only to sound and appear to be agreeable? Is it only to provide comfort to this other person? So, for example, if this other person is talking about all the limitations that they see in their life, all the limitations with their money, you saying, well, I know that I create my economy. I know that I was put here. Wealth is inherent for me. I know that I can wake up every day to wealth building activities that are aligned with who I am and who I came here to be. Now, those words may make a person who has limited their money capacity, their money receiving capacity, they may feel uncomfortable with those words. But that's not your issue. It's not your issue. So take that however you want to take it. If it resonated, wonderful. If it didn't, amazing. Let me know what your takeaways are from the Page of Swords and watch your mouth.